Let's do this.
Oh,
Hi.
uh,
Hi, Peter. Hello, teachers, and welcome to Teachers Help Teachers. I'm your host, Esther Yoon, and today we have back Peter Rosenstein. Welcome to the program, Peter.
Hi, thanks for having me back. I'm excited about today's topic. It's something I've been actually thinking a lot about. So
Yeah.
you want to introduce what we're going to be doing? That'd be great.
Yeah, exactly. So, on that note, today's topic is parent conference. It's about parent conference and holding them remotely during this time where we have remote learning going on. And Peter, as I was thinking about this topic of parent conference and holding them through, in this case, Zoom or other apps like Zoom, um, you know, when we do open up again, I want to offer this platform for parents too, in case they can't make it to parent conference in person, to do it virtual like this, because so many of us parents, all of our parents, they're invested in their students academics, and they want to make the time to come out and see their teachers, right, and have a discussion about their students progress. But it's hard to step away. But doing a parent conference even virtually, later, even when we open up, I think would be a great thing to do and to have if
I agree. I think there's actually a lot of advantages to doing it this way, and a lot of tools that are available, also that are built into the system that I think make a lot of sense for a lot of our parents to do it this way.
yeah. So that's why I thought it was an important topic to cover, parent conferences, doing it virtually or remotely this way, because yes, we have to do it like this now, but in the near future, I think it'd be an important option for our parents as well. So Peter, let's get to the logistics of it.
Great.
How are you going to, how will you let your parents know about their upcoming parent conference? What kind of tools, techno- technology tools are you going to use to let them know about an upcoming conference, and how are they going to confirm it? Let's get into the logistics of that.
Okay, so I've been thinking quite a bit about it, and I did a shift from last year. I've used Class Dojo in the past, but this year, me and my whole fifth grade team really decided Schoology is going to be the platform. We're going to try to do everything through Schoology, and while it's presented some definite, there's been a steep learning curve to get up to speed on it. We actually are finding it works pretty well. I'm finding it works pretty well. I'm pretty comfortable with it now. One thing in particular, one way that I'm going to be reaching the parents, besides using just the mass email tool to let them know it's coming up, I've been able to set up a banner on my page, and that banner allows for super easy accessibility. So a parent could go in there, they don't even have to drill down to a file and find anything. They could just click on the banner, schedule my conference, and it's going to take them straight to a Google form. So once they're in the Google form, they're going to say, they're going to choose, out of 3 times, I could do this, this, or this. And then once I have everyone together, I'm going to compile that information and then confirm. The other way I was thinking about doing it, and I'm not sure quite how it works, and just logistically, I'm thinking it might actually work better, is to do a shared Google Sheet, basically like a spreadsheet, and they'll go and they'll put their name on it, and once their name's in there, they're locked in that space. So I'm thinking either between the Google form or using Google Sheets, through a link through Schoology, so they get directly to it, and then they sign up, and there will be just spots open on the grid, and they fill in where and what time is going to be best for them. The big challenge is I only have about half my parents on Schoology, even after a big push, even after many, many, many emails. So besides having the link to that Google Sheet or the Google form, whichever way I decide to go, that will also be attached in the email. That will go out to all the parents. So they'll have multiple ways to access it. And that's really been the challenge for me, is just meeting just like we do with our students, the multiple modalities, some kids need this, some kids need this. We find the same thing with the parents. There's just such a wide range of needs technologically. And some parents won't even be able to access at all, and it's going to be done directly through the student. So it's going to be through student communication, like take this, bring your parent to your Schoology device. Please show them where this is. Have them click on it and choose a time. You could type for them. They don't have to type it in. They don't have to do it from their phone. They don't have to do it from another device. They could do it from your device. So just that reassurance and building them and giving them the responsibility to help their parents with that, I think in some cases will be helpful.
Yeah, and I just want to speak on what you said. Yes, it's very important that our parents have multiple ways of getting to that sign up sheet. For me, yes, I will email everybody a Google. I'm thinking Google Sheet, where very much like your second example of sign up. These are the dates, the times. And just place your name right there. It's locked. That's your spot. And the other parents, first come, first serve, can continue to sign up around that schedule. How long do you think your conferences are going to be for?
So in general, for my first conference period, according to school, I do 15 minutes, but I always allow a buffer for that, especially at school, because we know some parents show up earlier, there's traffic, and they show up late. I'm anticipating the same thing, so I usually build in a 10-minute buffer. So it's I do a 15-minute block with a 10-minute buffer before the next one starts. So if I need to run over or a parent shows up late, it provides that little bit of extra time. So if they show up 5 minutes late, I don't go, okay, now you're down to a 10-minute conference. I could still push it out to that 15. There are some kids where I'm gonna, force them kind of towards more of the end of the day, because I know I'm gonna need extra time to talk to their parents about some particular issues. So I'm gonna have like a recommended conference time, or I'll ask the parents to please sign up for one of the last appointments of the day, because I know that there's other issues, and whether it's, an IEP issue and I want to talk about what's going on in RSP, or whether it's, some other issue, whatever it is, I usually reserve kind of those last spots, or I'll add on an extra spot. I'll make a specific phone call to a parent and go, hey, conference forum or out and open, what day works best for you? Let me give you a time. So it'll be kind of like a phone call directly addressing them, because it's going to be a special need. So I'll reach out directly to them in that case.
Yeah, that's a great thing to remember. Thanks for sharing that with us. Yes, with, not all students learn the same. They're going to have different needs. The conferences are going to have to tailor to that. So that's a great thing to point out. For me, I'm going to need translators. I have EL. I am one of the EL designees, so I have parents who speak languages other than English. So that's something to consider too. That buffer, you're definitely going to need that time for that translation.
If you remember, Zoom has the built-in translator. So as you're speaking, you get the transcription underneath, basically like subtitles. That is works as a translator for you directly. So,
and can you just real quickly tell us where we can find that on?
I haven't explored it too much yet, but I know that it's there, and I know, just attending so many webinars for training, we always see that we get that ticker running underneath with what they're saying. I know it's in the menu there, in the settings, and you can go in for translation, and there's a text the language and will translate. I don't know the accuracy of it or how well it does. I know even not having an EL class this year, a lot of the parents are still ELs, or they're ELs, or they're just they're single language speakers. They're not even necessarily learning English. So even without having ELs in my class, a lot of the parents do need that as a resource. A few of the parents that I've talked to, I will have another person join us just to be sure that even that ticker underneath is accurately translating.
Yeah.
For some of them, I can communicate them through my broken Spanish and their broken English. Generally, Spanish is the main language in my classroom. That I'll be able to communicate between the two. So kind of broken on my side, broken on their side, and we come together in the middle with the ticker, hopefully making up the difference.
Sure. So let's move on to a different topic about parent conferences. Do you plan on having your students present?
Absolutely. As a fifth grade teacher and always upper grade elementary teacher, I've always had students present. It's critically important to have them there. They need to be part of the discussion. I actually place a lot of the responsibility on them. Generally, first semester, I don't do student-led conferences, but for my second semester conference, I've always done student-led conferences. So this is kind of me coaching them into it, but I hold it in a very conversational manner. It's not, me as the authoritarian saying this is what it is. It's a discussion. Hey, what's going on? What's going well for you? What's not going well? Where are you struggling?
Yeah.
And they know exactly where they're struggling. They'll bring up all the same points, and then I'll provide the evidence. I'll go, yeah, here's the last quiz that shows, like, yeah, you're right on. You know where you're having trouble. How come you're not asking the questions in class? How come you're not showing up for tutoring? And it puts it on them. It puts the onus on them to say, hey, you know what? They recognize where their weaknesses are. It's them deciding, to maybe not take that personal responsibility. And it becomes really important, especially as they're transitioning into middle school. They need to become much more independent. They need to take responsibility for their own learning. They're going to have, starting in sixth grade, they'll have a minimum of 4 teachers. And then moving on, 6, 7 teachers in some cases. They need to be able to manage their learning and take responsibility for their own learning. It's not their parents' job at this point. As a fifth grader, it's the parents' job to monitor and see what's going on and give support and talk and kind of help foster that growth mindset. And that's something we talk about a lot at conferences too. But absolutely, fifth graders, and I would say fourth and even third graders need to be there. Actually, I strongly believe all students need to be there. Even when my kids were in school, we would always bring them with us because they're part of the conversation.
Exactly.
And if there's something the teacher would need to say, and occasionally, the parent will need to tell me something that might need to be said in confidence, and we'll say, okay, go run out on the yard and play for a few minutes, or we could dismiss the student to do something.
Sure.
And then we could have that adult conversation between the adults. But for the bulk of it, the students, absolutely, I feel strongly that they need to be there.
So do you think you'll have student-led conferences next semester virtually?
I do, for sure.
Yeah. Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. I don't anticipate being back, so yeah.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about the conference itself then, the content of the conference. What do you plan on sharing during that meeting, such as grades, progress monitoring, learning targets? Let's talk about the academic part of it. There is another aspect that I want to talk to you about, but let's keep it just on the academics and work habits, study skills. We'll talk about that too. What do you plan on sharing?
There's also another really important component, just the distance learning component, because it's so different than being in class. Before we might talk about behavior, or they're chatty, or they like to wander out of their seat. We have a whole nother set of issues on Zoom, as you know. So my main topics I'm going to talk about is grading. I have so many parents that still, despite the fact that they may have kids that have gone through LAUSD, that some of them have high school kids or much older kids, and we've been using the 4-3-2-1 grading scale for so long. And so many parents still don't quite understand that a 3 is not a B. A 3 in many ways could be an A. A 3 is you're meeting grade level standards. You're doing everything you should be doing. A 4 means you're exceeding the standards. You're working ahead of grade level. And certainly at the first report card, there's very few, if any, that are earning fours,
Mhm.
you know, that are working above grade level. They're meeting standards. A lot of them are meeting standards.
Mhm.
But as far as pushing beyond the grade level, they're just coming in to these standards. So really just informing the parents that it's not an equivalent. 4 is not an A, 3 is not a B, 2 is not a C, 1 is not a D/F. It's not a 5-point scale. It's a 4-point scale. And in light of that, in 5th grade, we also use mastery grading.
Mhm.
So just because a student might have a 2 right now, which means they're approaching standards, which is probably where they should be during this first semester. They're learning things, they're getting close to that standard. They'll always have another opportunity to address that standard. They could revisit material that they struggled with. They'll continually be presented with that material until they achieve that standard, and meet at least that 3, which means they've met the standard, or in many cases, because of that repeated practice, that thing finally clicks,
Mhm.
and all of a sudden they're excelling beyond. They really understand it, and a lot of times I've seen that jump from a 2 to a 4. As soon as that light bulb kicks on, then they can connect it to other material we've been doing, and they do really well. So those are the 2 big areas academically that I'm going to focus on. Work and study habits, certainly, getting the work done. With a lot of our assignments, it's way too easy for them to fool their parents. They click submit on the assignment. It shows that their assignments have been submitted, and I get a blank picture on my side. They've done no work, but they've clicked submit, and the parents go, I saw them turn it in. They showed me it was turned in, but there's nothing there. I mean, as a funny anecdote, I was grading yesterday, and a girl sent me a picture of her feet. She's standing and she put the camera facing down, took a picture of her feet and posted it, thinking that either A, I wouldn't look at it, or B, she could show her parents, look, I even posted a picture. But it wasn't a picture of the work. I was like, that's not going to work. So the parent was immediately notified
Mhm.
uh, of that one. But yeah, I have a lot that just want to click submit and I'm done and I've done the work. So that's one issue of taking responsibility for the work and actually doing the work.
Mhm.
The other one is while they're in class, that they're active participants in class, that their cameras are on, they're at their seat, that I don't see, them staring at their phone, which I've seen many doing. I've screenshotted them. They have their PS4 controller in their hand during class. I've had some that when I ask them to share their screen to show what work they're working on, I see 3 tabs open across the top of their screen. They have TikTok, they have a YouTube tab open. So they're looking at other things.
Yeah.
They're staring at the screen. It looks like there's eye contact, but
Right.
they have other things going on at that same time. So just talking to the parents about, these kids are smart and they're savvy. They're computer savvy. They know how to operate the screens. They could, even if it's not an open tab, they could have another browser open and they're flipping back and forth between the 2 browsers. Uh,
Sure.
I've seen a lot of that going on too. So just informing the parents that, you know, there's a lot going on and it's not being in the classroom. And the kids whose screens are off, I don't know what they're doing. I don't even know if they're there. I know a lot of times I'll even dismiss to lunch. Everyone will say, okay, we'll be back in 35 minutes after lunch. And I have 4 screens that are still sitting there black. Those
Mhm.
kids aren't attending to what's going on in class. They didn't hear me dismiss anyone. They don't know what's going on. They
Yeah.
don't even know class was dismissed.
Yeah.
That's a big issue.
Yeah. No doubt. And you know, there's this one expectation, right? Working independently or following directions. These are expectations. Taking initiative, right? I mean, geez, talk about really having these kids, if they care to, step up to taking initiative, being responsible, making responsible choices for their learning. And that's the same conversation I had with my little guys, with my 6-year-olds. That yeah, they too can make choices over their what they see, what they say, what they do. They can choose to be an active learner, or they can choose to check out. But it's up to them, and yeah,
Do you
it's
find
really
that
putting them to the test, right?
you
Of
find that your students have a parent with them most of the time they're in class, or they left independently?
they're around. Maybe 5 of them are sitting next to them, but a lot of them are around. Um, So for me, when I hold my parent conference, I'm going to talk to my parents about their learning targets. And I got the learning targets from the DOI, Department of Instruction website. And conveniently, um, they're within the standards, there are learning targets within the reporting period.
Yes.
So within the reporting period, the foundational skill standards, the making meaning of text standards, the language conventions. There are learning targets within reporting period 1. So
Yes.
there's room for mastery. And then what happens is in reporting period 2, they build upon those previous learning targets. So I thought that was a really cool resource for you teachers out there. If you want to be specific about their learning targets for that span between August and November, it's there for you if you're an LA Unified teacher. And if not, I'm sure something similar to that is available to you on your district website. Look for it.
Yeah. I
Um,
think the Department of Instruction for LAUSD is not behind the firewall, so I think even teachers outside of the district could access it.
oh, thank you for that. Thank you. So excuse me. Yeah, and I, I'm a huge proponent of progress monitoring. The students monitoring their progress in their learning, especially for our primary years, where they need to make sure they have they're progressing through the literary continuum. I like to let parents know if depending on the student's needs, every 10 days, monthly, or every other month, how they're progressing on that literary continuum. So that's not a topic that will come up during parent conferences, because in between the conferences, I'll be notifying them about their progress. But uniquely to parent conferences, I definitely want to cover those learning targets, the current ones, and then the future ones, because parents want to know, okay, this is where my student is now. Where do they need to go for the next few months? So that's how I want to hold or share out the information during.
One other thing I'd like to add is also one thing I think it's really important to communicate to the parents that, through remote learning, it's different. We're not doing everything that we could get done in the classroom. It's just different. There's asynchronous time and synchronous time, and our expectations have been adjusted. However, when things do normalize and we're back in the classroom, teachers, and whether it's my 5th graders going on to middle school or your 1st graders rolling into 2nd grade, the 2nd grade teachers' expectations back in the classroom, as they should be appropriately high and back up. But it's going to be hard for these kids transitioning back. And that's a conversation that I am having with them, that there is adjusted expectations right now. They are much lower. And for the kids not even meeting those expectations, how hard that's going to be for them when we do end up transitioning back. So for what we're doing right now, I am definitely aiming much more for the middle. And I am accelerating for some of my higher kids, trying to meet their needs as well, but definitely aiming much more for the middle than I typically do. Setting really ambitious goals for them. It's not like I could walk around the class and look over their shoulders and see 4 or 5 different papers and go, you, and you to the kidney table. Let's do a quick intervention, get this fixed before this goes home and becomes a bigger problem. Sometimes I don't even know for 2 or 3 days, especially if they're turning in late assignments, that, oh, they didn't get this concept. They're not asking questions, they're not raising their hand, they're not taking that personal responsibility. I can't put out the small fires before all of a sudden I realize there's a huge gap.
So I'm hearing you say, and I will too, to my parents, that personal responsibility it's going to be one of the driving points during our parent conference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's hard. I mean, we're talking about young kids, in your case, 6 years old, in my case, 10, 11 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's still really young, but
Yeah.
they could do it, especially with our modified expectations and what we're doing. And the workload alone is greatly reduced compared to what we'd be doing. We're not, in a classroom straight for 5 hours with them and then sending them home to do additional work. Their whole day doesn't probably equal 5 hours.
Right. So let's talk about one more thing before we wrap up, Peter. It's the social emotional aspect. Okay. So, it's a big one. We need to address it. I think, and addressing it during parent conferences with our parents will be vital. I reached out to one of our social emotional advisor, Stacy Lieberman. You might remember her from a previous episode. She provided some information that would help our parents continue to be a pillar of support for their students' overall wellness. So I talked to her for a few minutes, and here's what she had to say. Before anything, before even parents looking out to their students about being a social emotional support, they need to look within, is what she said. It's kind of like that analogy where if riding on an airplane, let's say, and one of the instructions is if the oxygen mask falls and you need it, make sure you get enough oxygen first and then give it to the person who you're assisting, right? And in that way, that's what she was saying, that there are 8 areas that people need to address, such as physical, psychological, and spiritual wellness. She gave examples of physical, proper sleep, proper diet, exercising. The psychological, where they're meditating or self-reflecting and reading about wellness and coping with stress. She was saying that these areas need to be met or addressed within, and then reaching out to their young ones, to their students, to their child. Just a little quick thing also. Teachers, there are local pop-up pantries and churches who are giving out weekly groceries, for example. Like in San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, there is a pop-up pantry. And so if you look for that, tell the parents about that resource. Like, for example, Freedom Church in Chatsworth, they do a weekly pop-up pantry where they provide free groceries, no strings attached. You drive up, pick up those bag of groceries, they'll put it in your car and you drive off. Resources like that, teachers, if you can extend that to the parents so that they can address the physical needs for themselves and their families, that's something that would help too. And then she also said to check in with their students emotionally then, right? she gave a tangible strategy of an emotional thermometer, a paper emotional thermometer, where there are emojis of different emotions on there, and the parent asks them, so how are you feeling right now, or how are you feeling today, and they talk about it. So in her suggestion, there's a action and a reaction. So if they're feeling frustrated, let's say with school, well, there's something that they can do with that, right? They can reach out to their teachers, and I know you, Peter, and teachers, we care about academics, but we care about the person. And if there's something that
you can't take the two apart. They're
yeah,
together.
exactly. And if there's something that's overwhelming and frustrating you as a student, like we want to know that, and to tell the parents that we want to know that, and we want to help you with that. We want to journey with you and your student in that. That's a solution. When they're feeling lonely, right, or anxious, to talk about it, to maybe FaceTime, right, with their friends, set up something like that where it's safe. And and one more thing that she said was journaling, where there's a practice of gratitude in that journaling, where you write down one specific thing that you're really grateful for. So today I am grateful for Peter, because Peter took the time to talk to me about and help me with my episode, and so I'm really grateful for Peter today. And things like that, where the student can journal, share out if they're comfortable sharing out. If not, it's fine. But having that avenue, opening up that dialogue between the parent and the student by journaling those uh, uh, the emoji paper that she was talking about. And then, of course, first and foremost, taking care of yourself so that you can take care of others. So I hope those were some useful, helpful tips that we can share with our parents if and when we need to cross that bridge about supporting our students' social emotional wellness.
To build
Yeah,
a little bit,
but what would you like to say?
so just to build a little bit on that, modeling is so important, whether we're doing it as teachers or parents doing it at home. So really talking to parents what it means to be mindful, and take that extra deep breath before clean up your room, or before you always leave the dishes out. Take that deep breath. What does it mean to be mindful? So sharing just some mindfulness activities with families at conferences too. Besides the food pantry, which I love and so important, and we know, going back to this Maslow's hierarchy, if they're hungry, if they're not sleeping, if they're in a crowded space, they're not going to be prepared to learn. They're just not receptive to learning. It's not a choice. It's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
The grab and go lunches are fantastic through LA Unified. I do, just out of a mindful choice of my own, I do a job every week just to really focus on how good those are and how important that is. So you're getting proper nutrition. And some kids will say, yeah, we get 18 chocolate milks and we drive through 3 times. I'm like, well, you probably don't want to drink all the chocolate milk, but there's plenty of good nutritional things in there. And they agree, and they come to it, and we talk about making good choices, and they're like, yeah, well, we save one for dinner or this. And I don't know how many they're actually drinking, or it's just kind of being boastful. But yeah, it's definitely a lot of nutrition, and they're great. And the same thing, it's just a drive through. They'll drop it right in your car for you, and you're ready to go. So those two big things. Some of the girls in my class in particular have started their own Zoom. They set up their own private Zoom, and they'll meet with their friends, and they do like a Zoom party. And some of them say we do our schoolwork first, and then we do our other things. So I'm excited to hear that. I'm not sure exactly what goes on there. They're not monitored. Hopefully that parents are monitoring that, monitoring what's going on with that. But yeah, they are finding ways to connect.
Sure. Yeah. So, parent conferences. Wow, that's coming up. And Peter, I hope it goes really well for you. And teachers, I hope if you're holding parent conferences, I hope it will go well for you. I know it's coming up in a few weeks. Peter, thank you so much for joining me on Teachers Help Teachers to talk about parent conferences.
And
I'll see
teachers,
you again.
just also teachers, remember,
Yeah.
take care of yourself too, just the same way we're telling the kids to. It's so important. Conferences are tough. Distance teaching is tough. Be kind to yourself. We're not experts at this, and hopefully we won't get to become experts at this. That's my goal. So, okay. Thank you so much, Esther.
Thank you, Peter. Bye.
Bye.